Another cool feature we have added to the interface to control the textures of GeoTF models. Let's add one of our basic models and materials. To display the interface, select the 3D layer and click the arrow down button in the top right corner. This dynamic interface depends on the GeoTF file and includes all materials from the file. You can independently control each texture's scale, position, and rotation. You can also replace the texture image by clicking on the name section. All these parameters are unified by controllers at the top. From the Transform Materials section, you can control all textures at once. In most cases, all textures are connected, so for correct results, you need to adjust only these common parameters. I've prepared special simple textures for Super3D that work seamlessly. However, their effectiveness is limited by the correct UV map of the model. Without going into too much detail about what UV is, let's look at a few examples. They work well with my solid simple models and models from WAMP. But these parameters won't be helpful if you try to add a more complex model with baked textures, because you cannot change the position, scale, and rotation of the baked materials that should be always in the right place. So for better control over materials in After Effects, I will exclusively use my textures and create new ones based on them. There are not only transformation options but also material properties like metallic, roughness, and base color. These options will affect the entire material with all textures, even in more complex files like this one. GeoTF models can vary significantly. Some may lack certain parameters. From this interface, you can add new parameters that currently don't exist in the models. Let's add these basic PBR options for this model. PBR, or physically based rendering options, refer to a set of material properties that simulate realistic lighting and surface interactions. These properties include metallic, roughness, and base color, which determine how light reflects off the surface, how rough or smooth the surface appears, and the overall color of the material. It's a simple system that helps us make noticeable changes just with a few parameters, and could cover a lot of cases without going too deep into 3D materials theory. That's great. You'll see the changes in near real time, without the need to open another software and export the updates. Unfortunately, I cannot animate these parameters due to the limitations of this file format. Another feature of the GeoTF models that I use in Super3D is the ability to add multiple materials to the file and switch between them. Let's explore this functionality on a more complex model from WAMP, which I have already prepared with Super3D. I will demonstrate how to do this a bit later. This model contains 6 meshes in one file. Each mesh uses a separate material. In Super3D, you will see them as a list of materials. At the top of the panel, click the button to show hidden information. Here you can see each mesh's name and its linked material. From this list of all existing materials in the model, I can assign any material to any mesh. It's very easy. They apply almost perfectly to our seamless textures without any additional adjustments. In this interface, you can also rename the meshes and materials for easier navigation. Here's a cool tip. Base color in the PBR options doesn't just change the color. It can also control the material's alpha channel. This enables us to make the material and its linked meshes transparent. Best of all, it works from a single file. I use this feature to easily toggle the visibility of certain meshes from here by clicking the I button. So if your model consists of many meshes, You don't have to split the model into lots of separate files. It automatically works with our pre-installed materials and can be manually added to any file with our Super3D functionality. All these changes are saved directly in the models file, so all changes will be seen in any software where you'll use this file. Let's try to add a new material. Use the arrow button to set the active material. Click on it to reveal a list of all pre-installed and custom materials. Select any material and click the button to add it to the model. You will find it at the end of the materials list. Now you can use it for any mesh of the model. This feature enables us to generate various materials and save them directly in the model. We have additional functionality to replace, copy, paste, and delete the materials located in the top right corner of each material. Let's review all of them. The replace function will help to replace the selected material with a new one from the library. You can set the active one, which will replace the selected material by selecting it from the list. Then click on the Replace button. The model will be replaced and updated. The delete function simply removes any material with all texture files. The copy-paste function helps us to apply certain material to any other. This works similarly to the replace function, but instead of using material from the library, you can use any material already present in the model. The copy-paste function also works with different files. For example, I'll add two models with different materials. Then I'll make a few PBR adjustments, like this one. I can copy this new material and paste it into another model. However, be careful and try to replace new materials to save the original. All these changes are immediately applied to the file, and the undo action in After Effects will not work. That is all you can do with materials at this moment. To hide this interface, click the arrow down button again. In the dynamic options, you will notice the difference when you try to add, for example, a model without textures by deselecting the materials in the widget. You will see only basic material options. To pause different models, just select another layer and click the Update button at the top of these control settings. The green indicator means that the model is synced with Super3D, so changes can be applied at any time. You can work with the layers from another composition and change any parameters will only affect the linked layer. This functionality will help you to control the material faster and make simple actions from one place. For the practice, let's prepare the snake model from WAMP. The new advanced 3D engine of After Effects is still in development and unfortunately does not support some material features of the GOTF file. Plus, due to some WAMP export limitations, there are situations when you cannot use the full 3D capabilities that work directly in WAMP and other 3D software. As a result, our model might look different. With Super3D, I aim to simplify model adjustments to achieve the needed results within these limitations, but with the possibility of getting really good results like in our promo video. Let's start with importing using the finished model composition as a reference. Create a new Full HD composition. Make sure the Advanced 3D Engine is enabled in the 3D Renderer tab. It should automatically be enabled after importing the 3D models, but let's double check. Before I dive into working with this engine, let's take a moment to understand the difference between the classic and advanced 3D engines in After Effects. The classic 3D is the original 3D engine which is suitable for basic 3D compositing and animation. However, it has limitations when it comes to working with imported 3D models and creating realistic lighting and shadows. We can work only with layers and create solid colors without textures. On the other hand, the advanced 3D engine introduced in After Effects CC 2024 is specifically designed to handle more complex 3D tasks, including working with imported 3D models from applications like WAMP. It provides enhanced features such as realistic lighting, shadows, and materials. I'll add a composition with the finished model here to see the difference. Now let's add the model from WAMP. In the Model Settings window, click the Make Comp Size button to adjust the model size. Let's rotate the model along one axis to face the front and slightly scale it up. It's starting to look good. As you can see, the difference is huge. The textures lack details and the lighting with shadows is not interesting at all. Now we will delve into the look depth area. In this lesson, I will use some simple tricks for the beginning. By default, the scene uses a hidden light in front of the model, slightly to the top right corner. You can replace it with a new light source by right-clicking on the Layers panel background and select the New Light option. We have a few types of lights. Let's start with the spotlight without any changes. It looks like a simple lamp. Open the Transform and Light Options properties. To control the direction of light, you can adjust point of interest and its position. At this moment, we need to set up the light only for this model. So to make sure that the light is focusing only on the model and not somewhere else in the scene, you can check Position and make point of interest the same as the position of the model. Just select the position property of the model, press Ctrl+C, and then press Ctrl+V on point of interest. Now the light will be exactly at the center of the model. A small fast tip: if you notice that the model's lighting is not updating immediately, just wait a bit while the scene finishes rendering. The indication will be here, like a blue progress bar. After that, it should update in real time. Otherwise, if you notice slow rendering, click Draft 3D. At this moment, you will not notice the difference between them. Let's get back to the light. It's hard to track the exact light position in this view if you don't fully understand the properties values. You can change Active Camera View to Custom View here. By selecting the Orbit Around tool and the light layer, you can move around the model to exact light position. This way will be more intuitive. Let's increase the intensity of the light. For now, the intensity depends on the direction, cone boundaries, and distance between the light source and objects in point of interest. If you try to duplicate the model and place it behind the light, it will be just black. You can set Fall Off to None. The intensity will always be the same and not depend on distance. Other types of light are just modifications of this light. To change them, you can double-click on the light layer. The point light doesn't have boundaries and, like the sun, illuminates the scene in all directions from the source position in the scene. The parallel light doesn't have an exact position of the light source in the scene. It illuminates all objects only by direction, locating far, far away. The ambient light doesn't create shadows at all. It illuminates all objects evenly from all sides, producing solid colors. And the last new type of light is environment light. It appeared with the latest After Effects Advanced 3D engine and works only with it. It creates another type of physically correct lighting. You can notice that with our previous lights, we don't have realistic shadows. You just see how meshes self-shadow. In other words, the shadows are located only on separate parts and don't interact with each other. This is the limitation of the simple lights in the advanced 3D engine and imported 3D models. They will work in the classic 3D engine, but you can't use imported models in it. So, the environment light comes into play, which creates realistic rendering. I will create most of the models and scenes with the help of this light type. I still can use all types of light, and later we will try to combine them together. Let's set the camera view to active camera. If the camera looks different, open the View menu and select Reset to Default Camera. For now, enabling Draft 3D significantly improves the picture quality. Draft 3D is a mode in After Effects that optimizes the rendering of 3D scenes for faster performance during preview. The shadows become more realistic, not only appearing on the meshes themselves, but also being cast from one mesh to another, enhancing the overall visual effect. If you don't see the cast shadows, there could be one main issue. In the render options, check the casting box size. In the viewport, you will see the purple lines. Make sure the area is not too small and covers the whole composition. However, you might face performance issues. In 3D, we always balance between quality and speed of work. So, to make our work faster, I'll make a few render adjustments. I'll set resolution sample factor to half. This means we will lose some small texture details, but overall the picture will remain the same. While working on light and shadows, this is acceptable. In the Fast Previews drop-down list, I'll activate Adaptive Resolution. This setting dynamically adjusts the resolution of the preview to speed up model manipulations. In the Renderer options, I'll set render quality to low, resolution to half, and smoothness to 10. These adjustments reduce the strain on the system, allowing for a more responsive workflow. Depending on your computer specs, you can adjust it for better or worse quality. Let's look at the environment light again. Unlike previous lights, which act as single light sources, the environment light uses an image that surrounds the scene, and the materials of the models reflect this image. Imagine that we have a sphere in this scene, a really large sphere, with a texture applied to it. For such objects, I usually use HDRI or EXR images that have an extended range of bright colors. You can find such maps on sites like Polyheaven. These images provide a realistic environment that can produce rich, realistic scene lighting with no need for multiple light sources. You can download some and use them in After Effects. In the Source Property in Light options, you can set another environment map if you add these files to the composition. I'll add some of them. Done. Here is the list of all HDRI and EXR maps that you can change. If you're curious about how the default map looks, you can add a sphere from Super3D without selecting any material. Create it and parse the model. In the PBR options, decrease roughness to 0 and increase metallic to 1. By rotating the environment light, I will change how lights and shadows fall on the models. Every bright spot in the images can act as a light source. The whole image reflects on the models, creating realistic lighting. You can fully disable shadows or slightly decrease shadow darkness on the models. The light's intensity can also be adjusted. This system helps us create cool renders without extensive settings, but it also has limitations. You can't easily control the light sources since they are just images. However, you can edit these images in graphic software like Photoshop. The most exciting thing is that you can create your own HDRI and EXR maps inside Photoshop and After Effects. Look at this map. This is a custom map that I fully created in After Effects, especially for this snake model. I use two main light sources to highlight the front left side and one behind the model to create a cool background light that highlights the edges of the model. Creating custom HDRI and EXR maps involves combining various light sources and environments to achieve the needed look. In Photoshop, you can merge different images and adjust their brightness and contrast to create an HDRI map. In After Effects, you can use layers and effects to build a dynamic environment, then render it as an EXR file. This is one of the main components for developing a great look: lighting, materials, and some color corrections. For now, I'll use this environment map. You can try any of the HDRI and EXR maps that are freely available in various resources. Let's move forward and improve the textures of the model. To make the same lighting, I'll reset all properties of the environment light to default. Select the model and press the Parse button. I have many materials and texture images. For the best result, you need to replace all of them with R materials. Let's start with a clean model and practice with Super3D. Remove all of them from the model. Great, let's start with the body. Select the clay white material and add it to the model. You will see that it applies to the entire model. In the Meshes material panel, the first material will be added to all meshes of the model. There may be cases when you will not see the updates. Usually after changing the textures, After Effects automatically reloads the model. But if you don't see the changes, try reloading it manually. To do this, reveal the layer source in the project. Right-click and select Reload Footage. In the PBR options, let's change the base color to a dark green color. Due to the scene's light and material properties, the selected color might look different in the scene. Adjust the color to match the reference more closely. Next, the metallic option makes the material more contrasting and shining. At the same time, roughness makes the material more blurred, creating a matte surface that reflects light and shadows more faintly. To make the snake's skin more reflective, I need to increase metallic or decrease roughness. However, a high metallic value might not look like skin unless it's robotic skin. Let's keep metallic close to 0 to add a very small, interesting detail. Set roughness close to 1, but to make the highlight visible, decrease it to a range between 0.6 and 0.8. Great! You might notice that the texture is more detailed than in the reference. This is how metallic, roughness, and normal map work. Unfortunately, you can't control them with sliders, but you can modify these images. Let's find them in the project. Right-click on the model layer and select Reveal Layer Source and Project. In the Models folder, you will find the Textures folder. You need to adjust the normal map a bit. It's easier than it seems. I can edit it in any graphic software like Photoshop, but After Effects can also suffice. Drag and drop it onto the composition icon to create a new composition. Relocate this composition to the root of the project. This texture folder appears automatically, and this action ensures it doesn't disappear after some actions. Let's open this composition. This is a very detailed map of the clay material. Its contrast makes the image more or less detailed. To make it less detailed, let's take a few steps. Duplicate the layer by pressing Ctrl D. I need to make it a solid color, averaging all colors. In the Effects and Presets panel, add the Fast Box Blur effect to the layer. Increase blur radius to make it solid. Done. Then press the T button to open the opacity layer and decrease it to 60. I adjusted this value after some tries and I find it more optimal, but you can try to make it different. Think of it as the skin's Instagram filter, more or less detailed depending on the look you want to achieve. And that's all. Now I need to export the image and replace the texture. Press Ctrl-Alt-S to save the image of the current frame or go to Composition, Save Frame As File. By default, it could be a Photoshop file. I need a PNG file format. In Render Queue, click on the Output Module format. In the window that appears, select the PNG sequence format. I need a solid layer, so other options can remain unchanged. To ensure the image is of the highest quality and at the same size, select the Best Settings option in Render Settings. Now select the output folder and file name. At this moment, I cannot select the same file because it can't replace the file currently used by the model. So find the same folder, select the same file, copy the file name, and add something to the end of the name. Click OK and render. Great. Just in case, save the original file if you need to revert to the original texture. Otherwise, remove it and restore the name of the new file. Let's go back to the snake composition. After pre-rendering, the model will look much better, closer to the reference result. If you use the same material for other model parts, it will use the same adjusted images, so you don't need to adjust all of them. However, if you add a new model, it will be located in another folder with new images. Let's add new materials for the other parts. For the lips, let's add the same clay white material. Replace it on the mesh in the Meshes Materials block. Let's adjust the color. Make it bright, saturated orange, close to the red range. Possibly we will need a few tries. Good. Increase metallic a bit and decrease roughness to values close to the body settings. Looks great. I can do the same thing with the tone. Add a new material and apply it to the tone mesh. Make it red. To make the tone more realistic, decrease roughness to less than 0.5 and increase metallic slightly to make it look wet. That's cool. For the teeth, I don't need such a detailed texture like for the skin. Let's try the gloss white material. It will be less detailed. The white color will be unchanged. For the teeth, I still do not need a metallic look. Increase roughness to a value less than 1 for a more realistic appearance. But let's see. I've done everything, but how do we make it reflect less warm colors and appear whiter? For this, I will use a new emission channel. By default, I don't add it to the model, so click the Add Emission Options button. This channel helps fill the material with a solid color that can glow. However, the glow effect doesn't work in After Effects. It works differently from the base color. Black is just transparent and doesn't affect the material. The brighter the color, the more solid it appears. For our case, let's use a gray color to make the teeth brighter and whiter like a Hollywood smile. We will use the same technique for the eyes. Let's add a new gloss white material and apply it to the eyes. As you can see, the white color is not clearly white due to the environment, and the shadows between the body and eyes create an unappealing part. So let's add emission and set emissive factor to gray. Like this, looks great. Let's finish it by adding the pupils material. It can be the same gloss material with a black color. Nothing special, it should be enough. The last thing you can try is adding other simple lights. Creating a custom HDRI map is cool, but it has its limitations. It's challenging to create additional lights in a specific area close to the model. Adding extra lights can help highlight specific areas to achieve a more artistic look. One main limitation is that these lights don't produce shadows on the model in the advanced 3D engine, so it might not look realistic. Keep this limitation in mind when deciding whether to use additional simple lights in your scene. In some cases, the lack of realistic shadows may not be noticeable or may even contribute to a stylized look. However, if you are aiming for a highly realistic result, you may need to rely more heavily on the environment light and custom HDRI maps to achieve the lighting and shadowing you want. And that's all for now, folks. You are now equipped to make your 3D models shine brighter than a disco ball. To recap, in this lesson you learned how to use the advanced 3D engine in After Effects to import 3D models from WOMP and customize their appearance using lighting, materials, texture maps, and utilize small tricks for creative effects. Armed with this knowledge, you now have the tools to take your projects to the next level. Practice and techniques covered in this lesson on the various models provided with the course. Experiment with different HDRI maps and lighting setups to achieve stunning results. It can be challenging, but with practice you will get better results each time. Good luck, and we look forward to seeing your masterpieces.